Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our CFL Week 2 preview between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes. So let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with Winnipeg.
What you saw last week from the Bombers was their 2012 season in a nutshell. Some highs, some lows, and a lot of inconsistency. Buck Pierce has to play a better game. He has to protect the football, and they have to get that running game going. Chad Simpson barely got the football last week on the ground, and they got to establish a run to make things easier for Pierce in the passing game. Now, defensively, I think they played a pretty good game last week versus Montreal. That first quarter, they were getting after Calvillo, forcing some 2-and-outs, getting some sacks, turnovers, did a great job. The offense just failed them. But when you look at Hanuk Mwamba, did a great job in the regular defense as well as on special teams. He played like a man possessed, as well as Javon Johnson being active around the football. So the defensive effort was there. The offense didn't help these guys out, so you have to like their chances moving forward this time around versus Montreal. Now let's move over to the Alouettes in this game. Look at S.J. Green, had a huge day last week. 6 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He was money on second down, constantly moving the chains. His big body was tough to deal with for that Bomber secondary. They also were able to get a lot of production defensively. I like what they were able to do later on in the game. Kyrese Hebert, Chip Cox, those guys doing a great job applying pressure. Once they realized that the Bombers weren't running the football, they just pinned their ears back and started sending those safety blitzes, and they were effective. And they also got a lot of help from their special teams department. Tyron Carrier returning a punt for a touchdown. You can see at that point in the game, it really took the sails out of what the Bombers wanted to do, and they did a great job in recovering and trying to make a game out of it. But that punt return essentially turned the game around. So essentially, when you're looking at their keys to victory for this game, you look at last week, they played each other. They know what their tendencies are. They know their strengths and weaknesses, and it's a short week, so they don't really have enough time to adjust. They can go in with the same style of game plan that was effective in the latter part of the game, where they were able to move the football with ease. They were attacking the short to intermediate zones. Then they took time shots deep down the field. So I think that's what the Alouettes have to do in order to knock off the Bombers. Now let's take a look at some coaching points for both teams in this matchup, starting with Winnipeg. Ball security, number one. They had turnovers last week, 3 of them by Buck Pierce. They got to protect the football, and they also have to tie up loose ends. You can't give up cheap plays and touchdowns in the special teams aspect, and they have to establish the running game. There was little to no running game last week, and that's another reason why they lost. And for the Alouettes, they have to move the pocket for Calvillo. This is a guy that's getting up there in age. He's in his 40s. He can't handle A-gap pressure. And they have to find carries for those running backs. They're getting back Brandon Whitaker and Jerome Messam, thus making that backfield that much more crowded. And we saw how well Noel Devine did on the ground last week, so he warrants carries. So they got to find ways to split up the carries, and Calvillo has to stop the spot throwing. That could have resulted in so many interceptions last week. It also can result in pass breakups, and it's the reason why he didn't have as an effective game as he's used to having. I like the Alouettes in this game. I like what I saw not only from the offense but from the defense. When they decided to get after the quarterback, they were effective in their blitzes, and the special teams department helped round out a good victory on the road. Now they're playing at home in front of a raucous crowd. I think the Alouettes win this one versus the Bombers. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Alouette fan forums and Bomber fan forums for always showing football game plan support.